On a quiet Caribbean night, the crew aboard the USS Gravely fixed their attention on a single bright mark inside the Combat Information Center. It looked small on the radar, but everyone understood it could mean something serious. The target was a fast-moving vessel cutting through the water at around 50 knots, apparently convinced it was slipping through the darkness unnoticed. What the crew on that boat did not realize was that a full chain of tracking and response had already begun, linking surveillance in space, aircraft in the sky, and naval systems at sea. In only a matter of minutes, that tiny dot on the screen would become the center of a highly sophisticated pursuit. For years, trafficking groups have treated the dark waters of the Caribbean like their own hidden express route. Their strategy has always depended on three things: speed, secrecy, and the sheer size of the ocean. Moving enormous amounts of illegal cargo from South America toward northern markets, they have long believed that the sea is simply too wide and too dark for anyone to watch every mile. Their boats are built around that assumption. Their operations are built around that assumption. But on this night, that belief is about to be tested against a system far more advanced than they expected. At 3 a.m. on October 16, 2025, near the coast of Venezuela, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer USS Gravely was carrying out a slow patrol mission. It was part of an expanded counter-narcotics effort ordered by the White House in September of that year. Inside the ship's command center, the mood was routine. The crew was reviewing information, sorting through reports, and building the kind of evidence package that usually turns a long patrol into a long, uneventful shift. At first, this seemed like just another night on station. Then the radar picture changed. A bright, unusual contact appeared on the screen. It was moving fast, the kind of speed that immediately drew attention. The vessel appeared to be a go-fast boat, a type of craft built for one thing above all else: rapid escape. It was racing along a route already known as a common corridor for traffickers. The operators understood the challenge instantly. A boat like this could dump its cargo and disappear into the darkness in less than 5 minutes, leaving little behind but wake and suspicion. These boats are designed with that exact purpose in mind. Usually around 40 feet long, they feature a deep V-shaped hull that lets them slice through rough water at high speed. Their construction often relies heavily on fiberglass, which keeps them light and also helps reduce how visible they are to radar. Mounted at the stern are 2 or 3 powerful outboard engines, giving them the thrust needed to move at extreme speeds. Their low-profile, minimal deck structure and materials chosen to reduce detection all work together to make them unusually difficult to spot. On paper, they are built to outrun attention, but the USS Gravely was not relying on ordinary methods alone. Radar operators immediately began standard identification procedures. They queried the target through the IFF system, but no response came back. They checked the AIS database and found no active transponder associated with the contact's course. Attempts to reach the vessel over maritime VHF channels were met with silence. No identification, no signal, no reply. That combination raised immediate concern. The contact was classified as non-cooperative, a strong indicator that something was wrong. What happened next did not begin at sea. It began much higher. The first link in the tracking sequence had started in orbit, when a KH-11 strategic reconnaissance satellite, one of the most secretive eyes in the sky, detected the vessel from hundreds of miles above Earth. From there, information flowed down the chain. With orders passed from command, a P-8 Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft moved into the operational area. Once on scene, its AN/APY-10 multimode radar began sweeping a broad section of ocean. Using inverse synthetic aperture radar, or ISAR mode, the aircraft created a detailed radar image of the contact. That image revealed the vessel's shape and upper profile with enough clarity to rule out any innocent explanation. This was not a normal fishing boat drifting through the night. It was something far more suspicious. In that moment, the situation shifted from routine surveillance to a fast-moving, technology-driven interception. What had started as a single bright point on a radar display was now being tracked across multiple platforms with remarkable precision. The smugglers may have trusted the darkness, their speed, and the size of the Caribbean. But that night, they were no longer alone on the water. They were being watched, followed, and identified by a network far bigger than anything they could see. To get visual confirmation, the crew brought online a high-definition electro-optical/infrared sensor system. With it, they zoomed in on the vessel, picking up fine details, unusual gear on deck, suspicious movement, and clear indications the boat might be armed. At the same time, an advanced electronic support system quietly scanned for any signals coming from the target, analyzing emissions and building a detailed electronic signature that revealed more about the vessel's identity and capabilities. All of this information, visual, electronic, and radar, was fused together and transmitted in real time through secure data links back to the command center. Piece by piece, the picture became clear. There was no doubt anymore. The vessel was part of an illegal trafficking operation. What had started as a vague contact was now a confirmed target, ready for the next stage. On the tactical display, a projected course line appeared, showing the boat's path. It was heading toward open waters, likely aiming for a rendezvous point. Estimates suggested it could be carrying a massive load of narcotics. The calm atmosphere inside the Combat Information Center instantly disappeared. The room grew tense. That small dot on the screen had just turned into something far more serious. Tracking intensified. The contact shifted on the display, and suddenly multiple systems locked in. Icons lit up across the screens. The SPY-1 radar, an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter preparing for launch, and a direct data feed from a P-8 Poseidon aircraft operating hundreds of nautical miles away. Everything was now focused on a single moving target. At the center of it all was the Aegis Combat System, the core of the USS Gravely's capabilities. This wasn't just one radar or one sensor. It was an integrated network, combining streams of real-time data through the high-speed Link 16 system. The process had already begun earlier when a KH-11 reconnaissance satellite detected the vessel from orbit. That information flowed down to the P-8 Poseidon and then directly into the ship's command center, creating a seamless chain of awareness. The Tactical Action Officer, known as the TAO, immediately began coordinating the next steps, carefully following established rules for counter-narcotics operations. Intelligence from United States Southern Command had already outlined a structured approach. This wasn't going to be a simple chase. It was a layered, carefully planned interception. Meanwhile, the target continued at high speed, around 50 knots, clearly heading toward a prearranged meeting point. Its engines were pushed to the limit. Rather than acting recklessly, the vessel followed strict emission control procedures, limiting detectable signals while broadcasting a false AIS identity to blend in with normal commercial traffic. From the crew's perspective, the busy shipping lanes of the Caribbean offered perfect cover, but that assumption quickly unraveled. The Aegis system compared incoming data streams in real time. According to AIS, the vessel was moving slowly, like a fishing boat. But the SPY-1 radar told a completely different story. A fast-moving craft cutting across the water at high speed. That mismatch immediately triggered alarms. In seconds, the contact was upgraded from an unknown presence to a confirmed threat. Following international maritime procedures, the United States Coast Guard issued a clear warning. A voice echoed across the water. "This is a United States Navy warship. You are ordered to stop immediately." There was no reply. The situation escalated. Instead of using live ammunition, the ship's Mark 38 25mm system deployed a warning flare. Guided precisely by the ship's targeting systems, the flare streaked ahead of the vessel and detonated, flooding the area with intense white light. In an instant, the darkness disappeared and the speeding boat was fully exposed. If it chose to keep running, the next phase was already in motion. From the deck of the USS Gravely, an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter lifted off, moving swiftly into the night, closing the distance and bringing the operation to its next critical moment. The vessel refused to stop. Instead, it zigzagged aggressively across the water, trying to break contact and outrun the pursuit. In response, the helicopter moved in and released tracking dye from about 500 feet above the surface, coating the boat in a fluorescent marker. It was a non-lethal step, but an effective one. Under infrared sensors, the craft now stood out clearly, making it obvious to everyone on board that it had been fully identified and was no longer moving unseen. In many cases, that kind of pressure is enough to end the chase. This time, it was not. The crew remained non-compliant and kept pushing forward. The operator at the helm increased speed to roughly 45 knots, aiming for shallow coastal waters where a larger warship would have limited room to maneuver. That decision triggered the next phase of the interception. Now the operation shifted to its most decisive layer. The MH-60R Seahawk, callsign Viper 01, dropped low over the waves, flying at around 100 feet with purpose and precision. This was no longer just a pursuit from a distance. The aircraft was positioning for a vessel, boarding, search, and seizure operation, with a Coast Guard team on board and ready to move if the situation allowed it. At the same time, the helicopter carried precision-guided weapons as a last resort option if the crew on the fleeing boat escalated the encounter even further. One of those systems was the AGM-114 Hellfire, guided by laser designation from the helicopter. It can engage moving targets at several nautical miles, travels at high speed, and is valued for its precision. In this kind of mission, its purpose is not simply destructive force, but controlled disabling power, especially against engines or propulsion systems, so the vessel can be stopped without immediately sending it under. By now, panic had clearly taken hold on board the fleeing craft. The crew began tossing cargo into the sea, likely trying to lighten the boat and destroy evidence at the same time. Then a warning shot struck the water ahead of the bow. The blast hit with such force that it nearly rolled the vessel, sending a clear message that the chase had entered a far more serious stage. With targeting data shared between the P-8 Poseidon and the Aegis system, the entire operation had become tightly coordinated, turning what looked like a chaotic high-speed escape into a controlled tactical interception. As the boarding team prepared to move in from low altitude, rifles were ready and every second mattered. Then the resistance hardened. Gunfire erupted from the speedboat, ripping through the night toward the approaching helicopter and the team preparing to board. In that instant, the encounter crossed into open-armed resistance. The USS Gravely surged ahead at 30 knots to support the action. Its Mark 45 naval gun, a powerful system built for long-range engagement, was available if needed. But at this distance, the response had to be measured with extreme care. The fire control system was set to burst rounds in the air near the target rather than strike the hull directly, creating a controlled cloud of high-speed fragments intended to disable propulsion and expose mechanical systems without tearing the vessel apart. The order was given. The first airburst detonated near the boat, sending a storm of fragments across the area and knocking out its ability to keep running at full speed. At the same time, the maritime assault team closing in from a rigid hull craft laid down precise covering fire. Short, disciplined bursts pinned down movement on deck, creating the opening needed to bring boarding ladders into place amid confusion, smoke, and flash distraction devices. Even then, not everyone gave up. Part of the crew surrendered, but the captain kept trying to force life out of the damaged engine, pushing forward in a final act of desperation. At that point, everyone involved understood the same thing. The operation had reached its most dangerous moment. The next seconds would decide whether the interception ended in surrender or in total disaster. The fleeing vessel made one last desperate move, turning directly toward the USS Gravely. The distance was closing fast, now under 500 yards and shrinking by the second. At that moment, the operation escalated to its final containment phase, leaving no room for escape. Heavy machine guns roared to life. From the MH-60R helicopter above and from mounted positions on the destroyer's deck, .50 caliber systems unleashed a relentless stream of fire. Each weapon poured out hundreds of rounds per minute, creating overwhelming pressure. At the same time, the ship's tracking systems, combining SPY-1 radar data with targeting information from the P-8 Poseidon, ensured that every shot was guided with precision, even against a fast-moving target. The effect was immediate. The vessel's upper structure and control systems were rapidly disabled, stripping away any remaining ability to maneuver or fight back. Within seconds, a special operations team arrived, equipped with HK-416 rifles. They deployed onto the deck, moving with speed and control. Clear commands cut through the chaos, leaving no doubt about the situation. Under sustained pressure and warning fire, the captain who had tried to break through finally gave up. One by one, the remaining crew followed. The encounter was over. The vessel was secured and the situation brought under control in accordance with established engagement protocols. But the operation didn't end at sea. Data gathered during the pursuit revealed something bigger, a coordinated network. Information from the P-8 aircraft had already identified a drop-off point, leading directly to a storage facility on shore. That triggered the next phase, a coordinated strike designed to dismantle the entire operation, not just intercept a single boat. High above, an MQ-9 Reaper drone was already in position, operating at altitude and feeding real-time surveillance back into the same network that had tracked the vessel from the very beginning. Working together with the helicopter still circling the area, a precision strike was executed against the coastal site. Guided targeting ensured the impact was exact. Moments later, a secondary explosion confirmed the destruction of stored materials at the location. Back at sea, the boarding team secured evidence, including floating packages recovered from the water. The detained crew was restrained, and a full report was transmitted to United States Southern Command, confirming that the operation had achieved its objectives. To ensure navigational safety, the captured vessel was later destroyed in a controlled manner. Flares ignited the structure, and after burning for an extended period, it eventually slipped beneath the surface. What unfolded was a complete, multi-layered operation, beginning with detection from orbit, continuing through coordinated tracking across air and sea, and ending with precise action both offshore and on land. Every element worked together in real time, forming a seamless chain that moved faster than any attempt to outrun it. The takeaway is simple. In today's environment, information moves faster than anything on the water. With systems linked from satellites to aircraft to ships, the margin for slipping away is smaller than ever. What once relied on darkness and distance now faces constant awareness and coordination at every level. Which part of this sequence stood out to you the most? Let me know below. And if you enjoy breakdowns like this, stick around for more in the next video.